Oh, you guys are so lucky. We get to start into another chapter, chapter 15. So chapter 15 starts off with this course study that just basically shows what rate we're using conventional oil, how much our reserves are going to last. So Saudi Arabia is the largest oil producer. It has more oil than anybody else on the planet. So if the whole world stopped using all the other oil sources and just used Saudi Arabia's, we'd be out of oil in about 10 years, to give you a perspective on how much oil they have. By contrast, Alaska's oil on the North Slope is our largest producer of oil currently. The Gulf of Mexico is the other large one, but the North Slope has our largest oil reserves. If we went in the world exclusively used only the North Slope's oil, we'd be out in 6 months. If the U.S. just said we're just going to use our own and not use anybody else's or whatever, we'd last about 3 years on ours. Specifically within Alaska, we also have the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, ANWR. And this is a debatable situation here. Some people want to drill in ANWR, and some people don't. And so there's a debate about it, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on here and why that's an issue for people. If we drilled in ANWR, it would provide enough oil for about 1 to 5 months for the world, and the United States, it would provide us oil for no more than 2 years. And so when it comes to oil, we really have 3 options with this low quantity that we really have, relatively speaking. Is we need to look for more oil potentially, we need to use less and waste less oil, and we need to look at all other alternatives to energy sources for ourselves. And so that's what this chapter really is all about. Oh, section 1, let's talk about here in this video. If you look here, it says about 3/4 of the world's commercial energy comes from non-renewable things like fossil fuels, and the rest come from non-renewables, and that is not a sustainable situation. So the book recommends that we look for alternative ways to handle that so it becomes more sustainable. And then we're looking at net usable energy situations as well in this section. And so fossil fuels. Here's the breakdown right over here of fossil fuels. And you see that petroleum is the most used fossil fuel around, followed by natural gas, coal, and then nuclear power. And then those are all non-renewable energy sources, and that's how much of each one we use. And then when it comes to renewable, it's only a small sliver, 8%, and this is the breakdown. A little bit of solar, a little geothermal. You get into like wind, biomass, wood, and hydroelectric, and you see the breakdown. So you see that hydroelectric is the next largest source of electricity in the United States. Okay, and then this is our usage. This graph shows us the usage of fossil fuels over the last 100+ years, or not quite 100 years, since the 1950s. That's not even 100 years. About 82% of the global commercial energy comes from non-renewable. So when we look at the world as a whole and its energy usage, we're using a lot of fossil fuels, a lot of non-renewable energy sources, and we're not looking as much at these lovely guys here. And so we need to take a closer look at those for sustainable reasons. Here's a specific breakdown for the world in the United States when it comes to this situation. And so you see that this section right here is non-renewable for the world. 82% of the world's energy comes from these non-renewable sources: coal, oil, natural gas, and nuclear power. And then from a renewable perspective, it's 18%, mostly being biomass, which isn't the best choice in alternative energies for lots of reasons. But nonetheless, it's used in large quantities, followed by hydro, and then all the other ones make up a very small sliver. You see in the United States, those numbers are a little bit different. We're a little worse off for the wear when it comes to non-renewables. 93% of all the energy in the United States comes from alternative energy, or non-renewable energies: oil, coal, natural gas. Again, nuclear power is a sliver of that. And then when it comes to renewables, it's only 7%, which is a very small amount. So we use more energy than anybody on the planet, and we use it in larger quantities when it comes to non-renewable choices. So when we're looking at these non-renewable choices, and we're looking at how those get tapped and utilized, we have natural gas, coal, and geothermal that are all important and kind of affect one another. We see that coal usage and mining happens a lot in the United States. And so this is a common, especially in Wyoming, coal usage, and it can come from contour mining, it can come from underground mining, it can come from area strip mining. We've talked about all those potential possibilities. Oil and natural gas are drilled for and then piped out. So you see the gas wells are drilled down. Natural gas usually sits on top because it's the lightest, followed by petroleum or crude oil, and then water is underneath that. In addition, I'd like you to make note of the geography of this particular drawing here. So oil is actually made in locations deeper underground in what they call source rock. And then what it does is, as it cooks and stuff, it then will start to migrate or work to the surface because it's lighter than the rock around it. And as it starts to push to the surface, it gets trapped. And so when we have rock layers that are set up in these beautiful rolling mounds that go up and down, it creates a natural environment to funnel that oil, natural gas, and water into these spaces. And then what you get is you'll get a impervious, is what this says here, or impermeable rock, one that doesn't allow that stuff to flow through it. And they get trapped right here. And that oil trap allows us, or helps us find locations where we drill. So we'll do some seismic testing and we'll locate these gentle slopes where we can find the oil where it might be trapped. And then we can actually drill down in there and remove it at that stage. How have we used energy over the course of human history? We've increased the amount of use a ton. So way back in the day, muscle power in early humans was our only energy use, really. Then we discovered fire, and that's a different type of energy that we were able to utilize, and it improved the well-being of humans immensely. Agriculture was another way we harvested energy. So all agriculture is stored energy, and we're just finding ways to store it and then consume it. As agriculture developed, we started manipulating other sources of energy usage like wind and water, and so we started using those. Windmills, this picture right here is a good illustration of that, flowing water to do all kinds of things for us. From that, we started making machines, and those machines have been powered by lots of things. Wood, but the coal really started a process where we started making more and more machines, steam engines, things like that. Eventually that was replaced by the internal combustion engine, which then started using more petroleum. And so that took over and increased our energy usage a lot. And then nuclear energy has increased it more. And so you see that there's been a huge growth in the amount of energy we've needed to consume on our planet. And that brings us to today, where we're at an energy crisis. We're consuming and using energy at such amazing rates. But as you can see earlier, it's not a sustainable activity because the vast majority of the energies we use are non-renewable. And so how do we handle that? What steps do we make? What changes do we make to start to solve those problems?